Welcome to Come and See, your podcast for finding truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. With host and founder Richard Case and co-host and retreat leader Kathy Ricconi. Join us every weekday at this time to discuss news, spend time in the Word, and receive answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. And now your host, Richard Case.
Well, good morning, Kathy. Here we are, and again, the end of April, and when this broadcast, and I think we've got both have some big May's coming up with.
A lot of fun travel on the agenda, right?
Yeah, where are you headed? Besides, we're all going to Tuscany for our leader retreat. Prior to that, by the way, we're having the privilege of my grandson. Aiden is an avid, what they call F1, Formula One racing fan.
Right.
And he's into it big time. So he, watches the races and follows the races and does a lot of research on the drivers and knows a lot about it. So it's fun. He knows all the technical stuff. So we get to watch it with him. We're treating him, his dad and mom, and Linda and I are treating him to go see the F1 race in Monaco.
Oh, that's so exciting.
And Dave Dunkel, our friend, he and his wife Melissa.
I was going to say, didn't Dave have like some kind of running bet or promise with Aiden about this too?
Yeah, he does, has and does. And when we're together in Monaco, Aiden's going to be negotiating the settlement of him winning the bets because he's been winning and his guy is still winning. So it's kind of fun.
That's awesome.
But Dave actually was an avid fan. He actually races cars, and I've been able to do that with him. So he and Melissa, we're scheduled working on going over, and then we talked about we'd love to do that too, and so we're going with Aiden. So it'll be the highlight of of just something for him personally that he'll get to experience in a beautiful place.
And you guys are staying there, and then a bunch of us are coming over and meeting you in Tuscany, right? Once you're already over there,
we'll be over there right before the retreat. We'll enjoy Monaco, and then we'll head up,
which is a beautiful city in and of itself.
We'll head up to Tuscany, where John and Michelle Santaferraro, our leaders in Italy, we just were talking to them yesterday of the unbelievable multiplication that is getting ready to happen. And
God is doing incredible supernatural. We should actually have them back on.
Yeah.
So that people can be updated on what God is doing over there, because the ways he has been moving through their ministry over there and the people he's been drawing and then sending out with it, it is a story to be told in and of itself. Just beautiful.
Yeah. And when you talk about kingdom, that they're sowing seed and teaching people to abide. People who are learning to abide, first of all, they're receiving it, and then they recognize this is the answer to real ministry, which is have other people learn how to abide and let them live out the life of God in their churches and in their communities. And so the multiplication is about ready to go exponential. And all we have to do is just help light that fire. So we're Linda and I are going back over in fall, and we're going to do retreats there. And then, by the way, after Tuscany, which is what our leaders come to be part of, and we're just growing together with the heart of giving it away. Linda and I are going to Iceland with Heath and Rebecca
with
Cardy.
The Cardys.
And they've got two leading groups that are going to do retreats that Linda and I are going to lead to launch the multiplication in Iceland.
That's amazing.
So it's really fun. So that'll be coming up for us as we head at the end of May to Monaco and then Tuscany and then Iceland, which will be fun. And I know you got your daughter. You got to get back to home, and you got trips.
Right, and then and we'll be out to Colorado shortly.
That's right.
You there too. Yeah, we'll be out the beginning of May. We're heading out to Colorado for the C12 annual event. And AFJ is going to have a booth there as well, because working in partnership with that. So we'll get
Yep.
to see you guys with that. And of course, being that that's our old stomping ground, we are staying back a few extra days and going to go play in Colorado Springs and stay at the Broadmoor and just enjoy some time out there as well. And then in the middle of while you're in Monaco, I am probably also taking another trip to Nashville to go down and spend some time just honoring my mom. Her
Oh,
birthday
good.
is in the month of May. So go down there and give her a little TLC. Anna's going to go with me, and Reagan, actually. So that'll be a fun trip for the three of us to do that.
Beautiful.
Yeah, lots
Well,
of good stuff coming
yeah.
up.
So we're
But busy.
Yes, we're talking about Paul's prayer in Colossians, where he again is reminding that I'm not asking you, by his people that are associated with him, the Colossians, don't give me your prayer list and I'll just ask God to do it. It's rather, I'm going to show you how to connect with God to receive answers to your prayers, so that you can live out this beautiful life that I get to, Paul says, I get to experience.
Right.
By the way, not absent, we know, absent of trouble. He says, I've had all kinds of trouble. But, and he makes a statement, this is in Timothy, but the Lord delivered me from them all, which is part of what we've been talking about, resolution. It's not that he prevented Paul from having the experiences. It's that now that you've experienced this, let me deliver you from this. And he did, and it's pretty cool. So let's go to Colossians 1, verses 9 through 18 again. We've been working through this prayer. It's good to repeat it. And then we'll pick it up from where we left off yesterday.
All right. Colossians 1, 9 to 18. For this reason, we also, since the day we heard it, do not cease to pray for you and to ask that you may be filled with the knowledge of his will and all wisdom and spiritual understanding, that you may walk worthy of the Lord, fully pleasing him, being fruitful in every good work and increasing in the knowledge of God, strengthened with all might according to his glorious power, for all patience and long suffering with joy, giving thanks to the Father who has qualified us to be partakers in the inheritance of the saints in the light. He has delivered us from the power of darkness and conveyed us into the kingdom of the Son of his love, in whom we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sins. He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. For by him all things were created that are in heaven and that are on, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created through him and for him, and he is before all things, and in him all things consist. And he is the head of the body, the church, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in all things he may have the preeminence.
Okay. So again, he's praying that, in Paul's prayers, which he said, he's given us examples in Ephesians and now Colossians, and he also Philippians, is that as he's writing the truth of that, he's really talking about, here are the dynamics of your relationship with God, because it is the opportunity to be in relationship and talk to him and let God talk to you. And he says these are basically the questions or the approach or the important elements of this as you then learn to be with it. So this is why he prays, I'm praying that you would be filled with the knowledge of and the clarity of his will. And think about that. If I'm praying that for you, hey, Kathy, I'm going to pray that you're filled with the knowledge of God's will. By definition, what then am I expecting God to do, and what am I expecting you to do? If you're going to
seek him, actually be seeking his wisdom and to be filled, to be listening in a posture to receive.
So I'm praying that you actually have a heart to go do that. And I know that if you do, God will what?
God will honor it.
He'll tell you. He's got to tell you his will. So if I'm praying that you're filled with his will, I'm praying, well, he's got to speak it, and may you hear it. And that's what I'm going to pray. So instead of me saying, oh, Kathy, I know these are the issues, so I'm going to just pray God solves them. I'm going to say, well, I'm going to pray with you for you to seek his will. God's going to tell you his will, and we're going to hear his will, and this will be fun. And by the way, he says...
And you'll get to step into it step by step by step, walking in faith in what he said.
Yeah, and that I pray that you're going to be fully pleasing, worthy, which means, well, that means, and it's really simple for me to find out. So you're seeking his will. I have a real simple question for you. What have you heard? If you say nothing, well, you're not worthy yet. And I'll say, well, what's going on? Well, blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, look, let's go to this place. Let's together go hear what he has to say. Abide, ask, seek, and write down what you hear.
Which, by the way, may not be the final. In fact, it very seldom is the final destination of it. It is a piece by piece revelation as you journey in intimacy with him, and he reveals what he's ready for you to receive and act on, or even just to receive.
And repeat that again, because when we talk about hearing, again, from our perspective, is, okay, I got a decision to make. I got an issue. I've got a problem. I've got an adversity. I've got something that's difficult. When we say hear, our desire is just tell me the answer.
Right, exactly.
And God says, well, there's two things about that. He said, one, if I told you the answer, the full answer, you would have a tendency to walk away from me.
Right.
Because you'd say, okay, got it. And either you would just sit there and wait thinking, well, I said it, so it's going to happen. Or I got this and I'll go now. No, and I know what to do. He said, actually, you don't know what to do, and it's going to happen piece by piece by piece. And he said, remember, and this is important, God says, my heart, my desire, what pleases me is you.
Right.
And you being with me and me being with you. And I purposely keep you close because if you walk away, you're going to get lost and you're going to make mistakes. So I'm not going to tell you the whole thing. It'll be step by step, piece by piece. And a lot of times when I say something, it's kind of fuzzy.
Right.
And it's not understandable. Like, for example, and we use this example with Peter, when who do you say I am? Well, you're the living Son of God. Well, that's been given to you by my Father. Hallelujah. I'm going to build my church upon your ability to hear my voice.
Right.
Hey, by the way, I'm going to die, and I'm going to suffer, and I'm going to be resurrected. And Peter says, I'll never let that happen to you.
Right.
Get behind me, Satan, because you walked away from the simplicity of, that doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Right.
What you just said. I heard what you said, but it doesn't make any sense to me at all. And I think it would be better if. And he says, when you're in that spot, it's not clear to you. It could be even completely opposite of what you think is good. And all I'm asking you to do is stay with me and let me process with you the truth of that. And for me, particularly when I'm abiding in the Word, come across some really interesting statements or observations, and literally, because it doesn't describe what it really is, I can't just say, oh yeah, sure, there it is. It's like, wait a minute, how does that work? One example for me was I was working on the supernatural, and I'm just going through Gospels, and I'm looking at what basically I was looking at what questions did Jesus have of us, what did we have of him, what happened, how did it work, what was the result, and I was just abiding in that, looking at look at this, look at this, look at this. I noticed something after being in it for a month or two was every time he did something, for a person. He said, don't tell anybody. By the way, they told everybody.
Right.
When a
More often than not.
When
right?
a demonic, he would confront a demonic. Demonic would talk to him. Now this is, I just had a conversation about this yesterday, and I was talking about, do you understand why he would have conversation with him?
Well, he knew who he was.
Okay, he knew who he was, but so did they. Okay,
Yeah.
Originally, he knew who they were. They were angels. They were in heaven a long time in fellowship with each other. He actually knows them, and they know him.
Right.
So it's not that I'm not going to talk to you, but you understand what you've chosen, and I can't allow you to have any power. So I'm casting you out. I'm moving you away from this by speaking it. And then he would say to them, "Don't tell him who I am." Okay, so I noticed that. Well, my question was, wait a minute. First of all, you told people not to tell them, and they did, and you never rebuked them after that. And so what's that all about?
Right.
And then you told demonic, don't ever say anything about you, and they didn't. They never did. And my question was, why wouldn't you let them do that? Wouldn't that be a good thing for them to tell people that you're the Christ, and that only would reinforce you're the Christ? Well, there's no place in Scripture that defines that.
Right.
So instead of me saying, well, either doesn't matter, I don't care, or I guess it means this, he says, well, why don't you dialogue with me?
And I'll start to reveal it to you.
And I'll process it with you. And it was, in my heart was, I have a question. Give me the answer. He said, well, are you willing to walk with me?
Right.
Yeah. Are you okay with it taking time? And that your answer will come, but it may take a while. Yeah. He says, actually, I'm going to enjoy this, and I want you to enjoy this.
Right.
That's what I care about, is I actually want to enjoy this with you. Go ahead.
Yeah. And even as you say that, I'm just reminded, just a check for people. You'll hear a lot of times people saying, I'm asking God, but I'm not hearing anything.
Yeah, right.
And I think sometimes we define hearing as, I'm not hearing the final answer. I'm not hearing the whatever. And when we recognize how he speaks and that it is a journey and the step by step, it also will help open our mind to recognize the steps that he is revealing. And like you said, you'll actually write things down along the way. You don't have the full answer yet,
Right.
but you're making note of the things he is revealing and that he is speaking, so that the picture can be complete as he continues to reveal it.
Yeah.
But I think that's important, because a lot of times, like I said, I'll ask, okay, somebody will tell me, well, I'm asking God. I'm asking him, and I want the answer. I'm not hearing anything. And the more we dialogue, we realize, well, actually, yeah, you've actually heard this. And if we look at this, he's speaking, do you see what he's speaking to you in this passage? Do you see how he's leading you in this? Oh, yeah, I guess he has been speaking all along. And we just don't recognize the speaking until it's the answer that feels complete enough for us.
Right.
And so we need to retrain ourselves to recognize we're hearing in the process.
Yep. And by the way, that's the beauty of the inner circle is, well, I've been asking and I'm not getting much. Okay, let's talk about that. What have you heard? What are you understanding? What verses are you in? Share with me what's going on with you. And two things usually happen is they'll say something, and you'll say, "Wait, stop a second. Do you
realize?
Do you realize you said you didn't hear from him, but you actually did? And he said this? You've been looking for the final answer. He just gave you a piece."
And a lot of times we don't even have to say that question. As soon as they speak it, they realize, oh, he's been speaking this.
Yeah. And by the way, it's real simple. Well, I haven't heard from God is I have a real simple question. Have you been abiding? Are you in dialogue with him? And well, no, I was, okay, well, you're not going to hear his voice when you're not there.
When you're not, exactly.
Hey, come on back. Doesn't matter. Come on back. Let me help you get
What about now?
Get reconnected. Let me get you back to abiding. What's the last thing you heard? Where were you in the Word? Re-engage, and you'll start hearing again. Because if you're not hearing God's voice, the problem isn't Him, it's you. It's that you've walked away from the ability to hear. And matter of fact, this is in Deuteronomy chapter 30, he says one of the indicators that you're not choosing me is you're not hearing my voice anymore.
Yeah.
And he says, I set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Choose life. And if you say, I think I've chosen life, but I'm not hearing you, he says, no, you haven't. You chose death because you walked away from me.
Right.
Because it's an indicator that you're choosing me by hearing my voice. So it is a beautiful thing. And so the Lord will give you the answer. It took in this scenario a couple months. And it was a long process of dialogue and questions, and God asked me questions, and what do you see, and what do you understand, and why do you think that is, and I just kept processing. No rush, didn't matter. I was going to stay. I knew I'd get an answer. I enjoyed the process. He enjoyed the process, and ultimately the answers came. And I won't go into great depth about this, but he said, the reason I told people not to tell anybody, I never wanted them to make that a burden or a action that they had to take. I wanted it to come out of the natural expression of joy of what happened. So otherwise, he said, they would then make it a duty or a system or a religious thing. And I never wanted anybody to have to. I wanted it to flow naturally from them. And that's why I never came back and rebuked them. I actually wanted them to, but I never wanted them to feel that they had to. But they would naturally. And he said with the demonic, and what he had to do there was take me into this very deep process of look at it and what are they and what's it like, and they're deceivers, they're liars, they're cheaters. He says, okay, now think about that. If I sanctioned one thing that was true, they said I'm Jesus, and I said yes, what would everybody think after that? Anything they said would be true. After that,
you don't want to validate anything.
I don't want to validate them at all.
Right.
Because they're liars and deceivers. They would take that and actually manipulate it further. And I said, you can't even start that. I'm not going to give you any credibility at all, zero, because I don't need you. Don't worry. I can express who I am without you. And I don't want anybody to think that what you said was true, so therefore the next thing you say is true, because it's going to be a lie. That was the answer. It took me 2 months.
Right.
To get to that
but
process.
I'm sure there was a lot of joy in the journey of just learning and digging in and dialoguing with him on all of this as well, right?
Yeah, and that's why he says that that you may walk worthy of the Lord, fully pleasing Him, being fruitful in every good work and increasing in the knowledge of God. So that he said, join me, and just like we just described, he said, Rich, the good work was you observed something. And you needed you wanted to understand what that was. Well, my good work was revealing that to you.
Right.
And he said there's a couple things about that. One is you did understand it finally, and you recognized it was okay to take time. And then he said the good work. He said, think of it this way: did you enjoy it? And the answer was, I did.
Yeah.
Well, he said, why? Well, because I didn't say I got to have an answer tomorrow. And I enjoyed the revelation process and the fact that you actually didn't tell me the answer.
Right.
And you asked me questions to keep pondering, and will then go further. And, like, for example, about the demonic, he said, well, why don't you go and investigate a little bit? What are they really like? And that was it. Okay. So you go in the Word and you start to realize, oh my gosh. And see, remember, I'm journaling.
Right.
They're deceivers,
Right.
they're liars, And so I write all this down, and after I process, he said, well, what do you understand about that? And see, so it's the good work is the joy of the work itself.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
And he said, I had a good time. And my good work was giving revelation to you over this process of dialoguing, and you stayed in prayer with me, and I was with you. And then you had the fruit of that, because out of that then came an understanding for you to rejoice and to willingly, freely express the supernatural stuff that I do. Never you don't ever have to.
Right.
But you will, because you can't help it.
That's awesome.
And do you see the fruit of that and the impact that's going to have, because I'm creating fruit? And he said, now think about what happened as part of the good work. You grew in your knowledge of me. Not intellectual experience,
but in knowing by experience.
Knowing, experiencing, and you not only got your answer, but you saw something of how joyful this process was going to be, and therefore, Rich, and particularly for me, because I'm always like, get to the point, and I would like the answer, and I can take a few pieces of information and say, okay, got it, let's go. He says, I've had to slow you down,
right,
and be way more patient to be able to understand that you're going to experience me in a much, much different way, not the way you would like to, but the way that I'm going to show you. And you're growing, because after we did this for a couple months, I said, and his question to me was, what did you learn? He said, not about the answer. You already learned that.
Right.
What did you learn about what we did the last 2 months? Well, it's this, and it's this, and it's this, and do you understand this? And he said, you've grew in your knowledge of me. And that's what I'm praying, and God says that's what Paul was praying, and that's what I'm praying for you, is you just have a lifetime of growing in the knowledge, the experience, the life that I have, and you just keep enjoying it more and more and more and more and more, and you'll get to know me more and more and more, and it'll be a whole lifetime, a process, so you can't ever say I got there.
Right.
But rather, I can hardly wait to see what I get to experience next. So
that's beautiful.
It's such a beautiful thing, is that you'd experience the fruit of it, because we want the answers. But he says that you would actually grow in the knowledge, experience of our relationship and who I am, and you get better and better and stronger in reality for you. And by the way, what that will do will deepen your resolve, your understanding of the covenant, the abundant life, kingdom of God. All these things will just be part of your life. And won't this be fun? And so that's where it's like. So we'll pick this up again.
A great prayer, right?
Yeah, we'll pick this up next time as we go deeper into this prayer. But it's such a beautiful series of statements that Paul makes.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for joining us, everyone. Look forward to seeing you again next time. Have a great afternoon.
All right, we'll see you then.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Come and See, your podcast for truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. Send us your questions and comments, and tune in tomorrow for more answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. Remember, God's will is best and none better. His truth brings peace in this world of chaos.